Okay, hello, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have this new edition of our 49er industry chat. And yeah, I know I'm excited. Jen, are you excited?
I'm super excited. I love doing things with Cal State Long Beach. So thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're just going to let just folks filter in for just another minute. So please do enjoy our title slide and get ready for a great chat. Just, while we're waiting for folks, just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items as we get started here. So my name is Jenna Quinn, and it's my pleasure as the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement to welcome everyone to this industry chat today. We just need to inform everyone that this chat is being recorded. So what that means for you is that you'll be able to view this chat again at your convenience. You'll be able to go back and see, oh, that's what she said, or share it with a friend, share it with a colleague, share it with a fellow student who you think might get something good out of it. But for those of you who are here today live, we encourage you to go ahead and submit any questions that you have in the Q&A box, and we'll get that over to our guest speaker. And so with that, I'm happy to welcome our awesome guest speaker today, Jen Miller. Hi, Jen.
Hi, thanks for having me on. It's exciting to be here.
So her bio really quick. Jen graduated from CSULB with a BA in Liberal Studies and Music option and a minor in journalism. While taking a break from her journalism career to raise a family, she launched her home-based publishing and design company, DataDesign. Her company evolved into a blogging business, needsomeone-to-blog-to.com, and eventually became a full-scale digital marketing agency, Nextdoor Marketer. In 2020 and 2021, respectively, Jen pursued a master's degree in management and leadership and an MBA so that way she could teach university students. She teaches leadership, marketing strategy, data analytics courses, and business courses to students at Brigham Young University in Idaho, Southern New Hampshire University, Grand Canyon University, and Ensign College. Quite an impressive bio there, Jen. That is awesome. So, I mean, I think we can just really launch into the questions. First to start, give me a little bit of background on you. Can you tell me about your experiences before coming to CSULB and what led you to the beach?
Well, I like to write as a young child. I grew up in Southern California, and when I was young, my parents were divorced. My dad lived in Seal Beach, and my mom lived in Los Angeles County. And so I grew up mainly in LA, coming out to the beach for the weekends. And then when I was a teenager, my parents kind of flip-flopped, and my mom moved to Seal Beach, and my dad was living inland. And so I knew the area well, and it was a school. I played the flute, and I wanted to play the flute professionally as a flautist in an orchestra. And so Cal State Long Beach was the best music school in the area, and so that's where I auditioned and wanted to start my career early on. My first semester at the beach, I was actually in a car accident, and it prohibited me from being able to practice the 4 to 5 hours needed to be able to, major. And my chiropractor said, maybe you should consider a new career. And she suggested I go down to the local newspaper. At the time, the journal newspapers, I don't know if you've heard of the Seal Beach Journal, but they had 4 community newspapers. And she said, go on down and see if they need an intern or something. So I decided, since I like to write, I would do that. And I walked into the office and was handed a Nikon and sent down to the pier to do man on the street interviews and see what I came back with. And from there, I started a career in journalism. And I was, I didn't expect to be deep in that, but I was, as I was a full-time student at Cal State Long Beach.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, like you can get I think that goes to show you can get your goals and desires from anywhere, right? Like anything.
Right.
You got yours from a chiropractor. So
yeah. And I'm so grateful for that, because my parents were more grounded in get a degree that you can apply anywhere, so I got the liberal arts degree so that I can cover all bases, but I have the minor in journalism. I actually have enough units to have gotten a double major, apparently, because I was both on the 49er, the newspaper, and the magazine staff. So I participated fully in the journalism program when I was there. And but I was also involved in the music program, and I was involved in just general things as I got my well-rounded education at Cal State Long Beach. And I tell people, I tell people every day that I actually use the skills I learned in my undergraduate work every day in my work.
Yeah, and actually that was going to be my next question, which was like, can you tell me about your student experience? Can you delve a little bit more into what it was to be involved in? It sounds like you were involved in journalism and the music school, but what did that look like? What did you do with the newspaper? What other orgs might you've been involved with?
Well, so with the newspaper, I actually covered the police beat, which was a little dark, quite frankly, for me. I'm pretty was naive back then, and I got exposed to things that I just didn't expect to have as part of my life experience and knowledge base. But it also really taught me to work with agencies and to work with individuals in getting the story. At the magazine level, that was really interesting because we did the entire process. So not only did we search out stories, I ended up interviewing homeless people in Long Beach, and I had to take people with me because I was afraid to go by myself to do my interviews. But it allowed me to really push past my comfort zone, and I was taking photos as well as writing articles, and then got to be part of the graphics portion to pull it all together and really create the publication. And lots of late nights, lots of grilled cheese sandwiches with pickles over down at the SBA building. And it was really fun. I loved my student experience. I did work full time while going to school. So, but since Cal State Long Beach was a commuter campus, that was something that a lot of students did. And I didn't always show up to class on time. I was not the best student, but I still had a great experience overall. And I value my experience and my time at Cal State Long Beach.
Awesome. Well, so what then? So it sounds like you had experiences across the board, right? Like you kind of ran the gamut there. What made you want to go into the digital marketing field, and was your journey there intentional, or what did that journey look like for you?
Well, while I was working at the community newspapers, I grew to love running a business because I became operations manager of the newspaper. But I loved the writing, I loved the editing, I loved the post-production, as well as putting together graphics. And I knew that was a needed service. And so when I met my husband, he proposed. We actually got married in April and I graduated in May. And we decided that if we were going to be married, we were going to start a family right away. And so I wanted to have something I could do from home. And a design business is a pretty easy lift as far as choosing something that you're going to be able to work really with your knowledge base of existing connections and friends. And so I help friends launch businesses by writing business plans and putting together marketing information for them and writing articles and press releases. And some of that was from my journalism career. Some of it was just learned sort of on the fly. And I also volunteered and worked at a group called the Professional Coaches and Mentors Association, the nonprofit, and they needed a newsletter / news magazine. And so I started publishing that from my home for them, and did that for about a year and a half. And once I had 2 small children, it wasn't working for me anymore. And so, but I may have done that for longer than a year and a half now that I think about it, but I passed on the reins to that and just focused on individual smaller clients until I started doing some freelance writing. And I worked for today.com for a couple of years, writing some of their blogging material when they first launched that platform. And then I did that for several years, and that evolved into me writing for individual realtors and maintaining their blogs. And it was all community journalism, basically, because I was writing about events and things going on in the community as a ghostwriter for the different realtors. And I had 12 realtors I wrote for, and it was perfect. It was like writing a newspaper out of my home. And that's how I got into that. And after doing that for several years, I decided that I wanted to do other industries and might as well do it as my own business. And so I started with 5 clients, and at the end of the first year, I had 35 clients. And then that snowballed and 100 and 1,000 and more. So it's just grown from there.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, that I always like to ask our entrepreneurs in here, right? The folks that have their own business, like oftentimes people, have that skill set, right? And they're really good at what they do. Maybe they got their degree in it and then they've been doing it for years. But running a business with those skills, right? Like having those skills, running a business, most people didn't go to school for the business of the skill that they're now trying to run. So how did you, I want to say get the courage to, or like, how did you decide to make that leap into having your own business? And was it easy for you to figure out how to run that business, or was there a lot of learning that happened there?
Well, I was very, very lucky. I had a mentor at the newspaper that I worked with, Vance Caesar. I think he and his wife have both taught at Cal State Long Beach even. And they're well known in the community. And he took me on as the intern and taught me about running the newspaper business. And I've been able to translate every business I've run since. And he gave me a long leash so that I could make mistakes and succeed as well. And I think that gave me the courage to start small, right? Because I had existing clients when I first started. But when I decided really data design, I didn't even think of that as a business. I mean, I had a DBA, I had the legal structure, I had a bank account, all of that, but it was more like a side gig. And when I launched Need Someone to Blog, I was very intentional about it. And I was launching a company. First thing I did was I hired a coach because I needed somebody who was who was objective and that I could be accountable to. And my coach, Darren Persinger, was fantastic. He really helped me to build my business. I chose someone who was in the industry I wanted to focus on, and he helped me to create something amazing.
Awesome. So what does a typical day look like as a digital marketer? Like, I think a lot of people, they have an idea like, oh, I want to do this, but what does the day-to-day look like for you?
Okay, so day-to-day is conversations, really. I'm strategizing with clients. I'm helping our team members figure out the next process and what needs to be written or what art we need for a certain website. I'm evaluating websites. I'm having those conversations. That's really what I feel like. I just talk all day. I do sit down, when it's not people time, and that's when I get my writing in, and that's when I do my brainstorming and my sort of planning, strategizing of where are we going to go next. And when when COVID hit, 2020, the world shut down, and I said, well, nobody's going to want to be doing marketing because people can't come out of their homes. So I'm going to go back to school. And that's why I went back to get the master's in leadership, because I have worked with women in tech and developed some organization there to help people feel more comfortable in that tech space. And I wanted to back that up with a degree. So I got my master's in management and leadership. And then after I did that, I was like, oh, might as well get my MBA. So I went back into that. Now I'm working on my PhD, so I'm doing all the school stuff so that I have the credentials to be able to move into my next path. But all of that also contributes to my business, because the more I learn, the more I can coach my clients and can help with marketing strategy, because it's different now. It's not as formulaic as it was 10 years ago. Google has changed everything, but it still works. But you need to know what it is that you want to do as a digital marketer and what goals you have to be able to get traffic to your website and still keep your budget low enough to where you can have impact when you want to run an ad. And so, I have a pretty wide network of clients, friends, peers that I counsel with, and we advise one another. And it's really kind of my day to day.
So what would you say is, like, especially in the world of digital, right? Things, pretty much since we had computers, like, things have been just hyperdrive, right? Like, things are always changing. So you said that, like, things are way different than what it was even 10 years ago. What are those trends that you're seeing? What is so different, or what's the biggest difference? And how do you make sure that you're keeping up?
Okay, well, we have to identify, analyze, evaluate, think about how can we push past the barriers. And with every client, it's a different story. My business is very custom. We don't have a cookie cutter approach, which some would say is not a winning business strategy. However, it's what I feel ethically good about doing. And so I like to see our clients have that individual growth more than, and really individual growth on that path. So making that funnel super tight, helping their email campaigns to be dialed into the point where they're very directed and segmented to the audience that they want to reach. If they're on social media, making sure they're only on social media where they're going to be active. Having a Twitter account and never tweeting is worse than having nothing, in my opinion. And so I like to see where their audiences are already formed before suggesting any digital marketing tools there. I believe that the website is the center of everything. And so if a client has a website that's not performing well, that's where I want to focus my efforts. And from there, I move on. And adding content to your website continually allows you to become an expert in different areas and helps people to understand what it is that you truly know. And so just making sure that our clients are continually moving forward and not stuck is a big part of what I do. With digital marketing these days, a lot of it's AI, right? Artificial intelligence is a growing industry and rapidly, we can't even imagine what it does currently because we're so far behind as we try to understand it. But what I found is that there are certain things we can do that can help our clients sort of harness that and make themselves more productive. But what I've also noticed is the human factor can't be lost. We have to be so careful about that, because I have, well, for instance, there's a newsletter that I follow. There's one of my peers. I really like what he has to say about leadership, so I read his newsletter. And I don't read that many newsletters, but his speaks to me. And I think I'd read like 2 of them, and then when the 3rd one came out, I thought, this doesn't sound right. I mean, it's the same messaging, but the voicing was different and it didn't feel as authentic. And I was like, oh, it must have just been a bad day. Maybe he was in a hurry, whatever. The next one, I had the same thing. And then I saw him post on LinkedIn, I'm trying out this new AI tool to do my newsletter. It's great. Nobody can tell the difference. And I'm like, I felt it. Like I felt the inauthenticity of, I saw through the bot. I didn't realize what it was, but I think that the more we have AI content, especially being produced, the more people are not going to feel as connected to that content, because just like I disengaged. I stopped reading the newsletter, even though I still follow him on social media because his little tiny pearls of wisdom are great. But that newsletter lost the value for me. And I don't want my clients to get in that rut. And so we have, I have a team of writers and we do everything in-house. If we're going to use AI, it's for repetitive tasks that don't necessarily need that human touch.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely going to ask about AI later in it. So I'm glad in this chat. So I'm glad that it came up now. But I think that I do have a question from the audience. So I think it may tie into this. What resources do you use and suggest to stay current with marketing trends?
I suggest
you with that.
So I'm involved with my AMA, the local marketing organizations. I'm very involved with WordPress, so I follow tech news that way. But I suggest following people that you connect with. So if you've heard someone speak, or there's a TED Talk that really meant something to you, or one of these chats, get in conversation with that person. Even if it's not a personal conversation, follow them on LinkedIn, follow them on Twitter, start to see what it is that they're doing and ask questions. Most people are completely excited and willing to share what they know.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like this is community building, right? Like what are you seeing out there in the space, in the community, right? Like, is there a community that you belong to? Do you feel that there are so many communities, and like, how do you find the right ones?
So I used to be involved in a lot of communities, and since the pandemic, I've, my home is a very safe spot, right? But I consider myself a people builder, and I build teams, and I like to create community. And so in 2019, moved to Arizona. And so I have gotten very involved in my local community with our WordPress events and getting to know people. I'm involved with a couple of different church groups locally, and I walk down Main Street. I talk to people, and that's how I get to know people, and I get to see what the trends are now, because the marketing trends have changed, and part of recognizing that is experiencing it. And so the more you look and see, the more you're going to understand where things are headed.
So what is the most rewarding part about being a digital marketer? And also, what is the most challenging part about being a digital marketer?
Okay, so I've had a little bit of transition because now that I'm teaching a lot of digital marketing, um, I, I find the teaching to be what I'm most passionate about. I love helping my students have those aha moments. Um, and but when it comes to marketing, the thing that I think is most key is that people establish their voice. So, I always say state your purpose, establish your voice, then reach out, build that community, and help them to understand who you are by verifying it. And that's why you want that content on your website to back up any of those efforts. And then as you evolve, you have to be consistent. You have to continually reach out and make sure that you're staying in touch with that community and those people that you've already connected with, because they will help you to move further and to meet new people. And my business, even though we're a marketing business, everything's been pretty much word of mouth, as far as building our client list and our website builds. People come to us because someone else said, you have to, give Jen Miller a call, or next door marketer, they're really good at local content, you've got to talk to them. And that's why people have reached out to us. I have never had to have a big advertising budget because, in fact, the ads that I've done have just been like $50 here or there on Facebook for my own business, because we just have enough. It just keeps coming. And I don't want to grow. I don't want to be a huge enterprise. I've always wanted to stay on that local level, so that I could manage it better and really know everyone that we're in contact with. And I did international speaking for a couple of years, and that was great because I was able to travel. I was able to meet people all over the world, but also I was able to build the business across different markets. So I was able to understand different cultures and work in countries that have different regulations. And so as things in the EU rolled out and in terms of privacy policies, I knew about them before they were introduced to the United States as mandatory. So I was able to be on the front side of a lot of that. And also with WordPress, I worked on the marketing team for a number of years and got to know a lot of people through that as well, and see the different aspects of developing content and developing marketing plans for and strategies that span global audiences, because you can't use colloquialisms like Main Street USA. Nobody understands what that means when they're in Europe, right? I mean, they might understand it, but there are we had an issue with the word ticker tape, because not everybody understood what that meant. And so as you think about diversity and inclusion, and the internet is not just Phoenix, Arizona. It's not just Cal State Long Beach. It's not a tiny or huge community, as the case may be. It's global. And so when you're doing your marketing efforts, you have got to think about that perspective. And I find myself, using different language even, which makes sense with inclusion efforts, as I'm writing, and there's things that I would have 5-10 years ago said was incorrect, and it would have been a grammar issue. So it's just interesting. It's just a constantly evolving world, and so marketing evolves with it, because we're trying to match the face of who the audience is.
Yeah. Well, so you did take, your skills and your experiences and went back to school, and now you teach. Yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about that, about your journey there, about, what you like to teach, what's a struggle there, and where you're hoping to go with that?
Okay. So I teach both in person and online. And in my online classes, the struggle is building that community. Usually it works out pretty well, but sometimes the group work especially can be a huge struggle for students because it's asynchronous learning. They're meeting at different time zones. They're trying to mesh it all together. And I feel like half of my job is to be a cheerleader, right? And just to help them. As far as the marketing principles are concerned, the biggest challenge we had this semester is that universal Google Analytics, like Google Analytics changed. And so all of the course instruction had to change and be modified, and Google Studio data, like all of these different platforms had to be reworked in a way that the students would be able to have the most updated information. And with digital marketing, that is one of the risks you run when you build a course, is that next week something can be released that negates everything you've done up to now. And so I think that that's probably the hardest, is just that, making sure that everybody's getting the most current information. What I like most about the teaching is that I can share with them real world experiences. I taught a design class at GCU, Grand Canyon University, last semester. And in there, like, I had to tell my students, I said, it's great. I love what you're doing with your layers and Adobe, and you Creative Cloud, you need that expertise and those skills, but you also need to be able to use Canva, because a lot of businesses are not going to provide you with the resources that you're expecting in the way of Adobe Suite and all the stock images in the world. And instead, they're going to say, why can't you just use Canva in a Teams format so you can share with everyone else? And that, and whether it's Canva or, another tool, that's just one of the things that I can share with the students is you have to be able to be flexible. So learn the basics of how to do everything so you can translate it to whatever program or project management tool or, that you're going to be working with. Because like at our agency, our clients are in probably 8 different project management tools that they want us to be responding to them in. And it used to be that we only used one, but if I can place a team member in charge of a certain account and that account uses Asana versus Basecamp, that person can become the Asana expert. So we can now modify for that. But in the beginning, we did all of our project management internally versus trying to interact much with the clients on that. We just produced the product. A lot of times now, though, we're much more involved with the actual client growth and where they're going.
Awesome. Well, speaking of sharing that real world experience with your students, across your career, and you don't have to name names, what were maybe your 1 or 2 most formative experiences working with clients, or maybe favorite experiences working with clients?
Okay, so I had one client who was a real estate agent, and I'm not going to say where she's located, but she was having trouble with her Google search results and needed a little bit of reputation management. And so I helped her to get the site, so that it was ranking first. And but one of the interesting ways that happened was there was an event, and I tell nowadays it's harder to do because most of everything is paid search. But back in those days, you could get things to rank in a day or two if you knew what to do. And so we were trying to get her that page 1, slot 1 placement. And I said, okay, if anybody famous comes to your town, let me know. and I will be on call and I will be responsive. And so I get this text from her, and George Clooney was there in the same room with her. And I'm like, I don't care how blurry it is, get me a picture. And so she like took a picture from across the room, and we made it into a story about why he was there and what the event was all about, and that, you know, she was there with him. And it was enough. And then, you know, we did all the social media, we sent out email campaigns. It was enough to push her to that top slot, and she stayed there for years because she finally got that like little edge, you know. But sometimes it's just that one event. And so that was sort of a career highlight, because I was like, yes, you know, we did exactly what we'd been working for, but we needed that little bit of celebrity to get it there. That was a really fun story. And then let's see, you know, one of the most meaningful things that I think I've done is when I started speaking. Well, I guess this all relates. So one of the things that was important to me was, and I told my coach this on our first call, was that I wanted to create a legacy business. I wanted something, I had 8 kids. I wanted something that if they needed a job when they were teenagers or young adults in college, that they could do part-time and help out. And so they all can write stories. They all, you know, they all can do blogging and social media. 4 of them have actually gone on professionally to have, you know, careers that incorporate those skills.
Oh, awesome.
And so that's super fun and personally fulfilling for me. But I was able to take my daughter with me. I was speaking in Paris, and she was graduating from high school, and I had to speak the next morning. And so she literally, I said, okay, I can't throw you a graduation party, but she was doing my social media for the company at the time. So I said, if you are willing to go with me, you can come and you can be my social media person in Paris. And so she literally walked off the grass of the field. We got in a car and we drove to LAX, and we got through security in 37 minutes, made our flight. Woo! And got there, slept for 3 hours, and then I went on stage, and it was crazy. And but the talk went well, you know. It was great. And so it taught her that she could live that kind of life. And my other daughter came with me when we went to Nijmegen, to Amsterdam. I was speaking there on, I think the topic was like daughters to delivery managers or something like that. But it was about how instead of flipping hamburgers, you can teach teenagers to have skills and incorporate that in your business. And that's what the whole talk was about, was building a business using, because a lot of my kids and their friends all worked for my business. And they were learning lifelong skills as they did so. And, you know, a little development, a little coding here and there, you know, and they really, a lot of them went on to be able to incorporate that in their careers. And that was super exciting. But my daughter, Wrigley, was able to actually speak at that conference as well. And so that was super cool for me. She's actually given a couple of talks now on her experience, both in, you know, working at Next Door Marketer and Need Someone to Blog and branding, as well as she had cataracts when she was born. And so she didn't see colors. She didn't see as well as the rest of us did. And so she was able to share that story and talk about how she became a design professional after being someone who wasn't able to see, and how it, you know, brought more color into her life once she had the surgery and everything. So like my whole life has been wrapped up in my business. And it's made for a just very fulfilling experience all the way around.
That's lovely. I mean, I think that's, you know, right, the dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for your kids and for your students, and for, anyone really listening, right? What's that one thing that you like to make sure that you instill in them in this field? Like what's that takeaway that you want your students and your kids to have with having success in the digital marketing space?
The topic that we had talked about was overcoming the why nots. And I think in my life, most people would say 8 kids, how'd you run a business, right? Or
Personally curious myself.
or why during the pandemic, when you felt that your customers were going to be dropping off, would you choose to go to school? Like different things. But for me, it's always been a matter of considering, okay, what really is the risk? What am I giving up by making these choices? And like Simon Sinek, I love him. The finding your why. I think finding your purpose is so important. But I think sometimes we need to think about how can we overcome those why nots, and how can we triumph over the things that might be little challenges. And the way that I always did it was I just wrote them down, and I thought, okay, yeah, I have too little time, but what can I do to change that? And is there, even if I don't have all the answers, is that really a roadblock, or is that just an excuse to find the answers? And so I think a lot of times flipping that and thinking about why you wouldn't do it, or what that roadblock would be, and just considering how you can get past that is so important. And I think a lot of people just turn away too fast, and they don't give themselves time to think in it and determine how they can move forward and do the things that they really want to do. Because I found in my life, things can be limitless if I give it the time and space to allow myself to take the chances. And so I think people need to be authentic. I think people need to take chances. And I think that as we do that, we develop our potential, and we develop those around us, and build that community that's so important for our worldwide peace, happiness, and ability to work and perform. We all just need to, Simon says, better together. And I totally believe that is that's kind of like a mantra I've adopted of his, is that I want to help everyone else gather and be our best selves together.
Yeah, no, beautiful. So we just have time for just one more question. So I'm going to ask, if there was one thing that you could go back in time, back in May, right after your wedding, right, when you were starting out like the world, right, after CSULB, there's one piece of advice you can go back and give yourself, what would it be?
Well, I probably would go back a semester, and I would not fail my journalism law class. Because I had to retake it.
Study.
Yes. And it's funny because I wasn't a horrible student, but I wasn't a great student. And now I love to learn. Like, it is so much fun to go to school. And I think it's a maturity thing. I think you get to that point where you begin to value it more. And at the time, I valued other things. I wanted to be working at my newspaper. I didn't want school I was doing because my parents wanted me in school. I wasn't there because I wanted to be there. Now that I've gone back to school for myself, it's been a completely different experience, and I love learning, and I love sharing what I know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for your time today. I think that this has been a very, very informative chat. And I think that, there are a lot that folks can get from your story. So thank you so much for sharing it.
Well, thank you for having me on here. It was really fun.
Yeah. So this is our slide here for those of you in the audience who, if you want to see this again, see this chat again, you'll be able to see it at our website, www.csulb.edu/alumni, where it will live in our video library. So feel free to enjoy it for years to come. And Jen, if people want to continue this conversation, or if they have more questions for you, how might they reach you?
You can reach me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at Jen Miller MBA. That's my handle on all of those platforms. Or you can email me at askjenmiller@gmail.com. That's ASKJENMILLER@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, for those of you who are here right now, Alana went ahead and put that in the chat. So please do take a look at that and capture that for future reference. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And hope to see you again next time. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.